You know, given some of the strangeness of the last episode, I decided to check to see if there was more of the out-of-order chronological stuff. Nope, this is actually in the correct order. In fact, I shouldn't even have it looked up because I forgot in this episode when he lands on Dathomir, droids, death, etc. And it's like, okay, well, there you go. So yeah, Maul's back. Woo. I'm trying not to call him Darth Maul. I know that's kind of his normal moniker, kind of like Darth Vader, but can we really call him Darth? Like, hasn't he lost the title of Darth as of this point? Like, would that be considered normal? I don't know. One of the things I find funny about Savage, I've mentioned this before, Savage really isn't a character. Savage is part of Ventress's character arc, arguably Dooku's, but most importantly, Maul's. And otherwise, Savage himself serves no purpose other than, I'm a big guy. Yeah. Even in this episode, though, he shows his lack of purpose in character. Because all he's doing is trying to find Maul because that's what he was told to do. And then once he finds Maul, he's like, I have no idea what to do. Maul's going to tell me what to do, right? And even when Maul's like, I think I don't know what to do now. And Savage is like, well, maybe you should come up with something to do. And then we can do it. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe we should do that, It's just funny the way they present this. Of course, we have to use frickin' magic to fix Maul. I've often believed that this is why they invented the frankly just straight up magic of the Night Sisters. It was for this, to rescue Maul. And if so, unlike the previous thing, I don't think this works. It would, I mean, because it's not necessary is what I mean. A stupid premise to a good idea, sure, but this isn't a stupid premise to a good idea. This is a stupid premise to shortcut a good idea. They could have still... They have resources, they have power. They could have just gotten him new legs rather than super melty out of the... Magneto would be in awe of this woman. Well, okay, that's not true, but this is like Magneto levels of metal manipulation. And then, of course, she just rips out all the inky blackness of his brain because apparently insanity is a thing you could just remove. Whatever. Moving on. Oh, even his horns shrank. Do you notice that? They were like this. And now they're like... Anyways. And then, of course, Talzin vanishes once she's gone. Yay. I was going to give the episode credit, because there's a scene where he gets off the table and just basically can't walk. That makes perfect sense. He has completely new legs, which by itself should be weird, but he's been used to the spider legs for forever, so he should be completely off balance. I then had to immediately retract that because about 8 seconds later he just starts sprinting in his new legs. Right. What's the power source for these, I wonder? Like, usually cybernetics have a power... You know what, I'm thinking about this too much. It is funny, by the way, when you think about it, when I think about all that Maul will accomplish over the next few years, how little they start with. I mean, I've said before that a properly intelligent person with either knowledge or personal power, like a Force user, could how far that kind of a person could get in the Star Wars setting. Ventress herself is a good example of this, actually. But it is funny when you look at Maul and Savage, who have each other, their lightsabers, a beat-up piece of crap ship, and that's basically it. No food, no money, no resources, no power. Their own use with the Force, obviously, but that's it. I sometimes wonder if they had decided to go after something other than revenge, what they could have accomplished. But as I said a few episodes ago, when you go through hell, usually you come out of it with either the best or the worst of yourself, which is interesting. But anyways, so Maul slaughters to get attention. Yoda insists on trusting the Force, and Ventress takes the savage deal. So, there's an undercurrent thread, and Maul flat out says that in this episode, that the Force is wrong right now, that the Force is out of balance. Whether that's because the dark side is resurgent, because the dark side is imbalanced, or because the dark side and light side are out of balance, and both are required for balance, both perspectives are still valid, as I've mentioned before. But what I find most interesting is, A, Maul is completely unsurprised by this, because he was apparently briefed on all these plans to begin with, but B, and far more importantly, it means that the flow of the Force, the will of the Force, if you will, not the wills, the will of the Force, is still present even despite all of this mess that's going on. I like to think of it as a storm, or a weather pattern to be more accurate. In other words, a storm, in extremely loose terms, is an atmosphere and environmental circumstances trying to correct itself. A storm doesn't just happen. A storm happens because something's wrong. Some pressure's wrong, some amount of water's wrong, there's too much blah in the atmosphere, you know. And again, this is a very simplistic viewpoint. But that's a storm. A storm exists to correct that imbalance. Which, of course, leads us to my theory on the Force, and that this flow, this will of the Force, is something that is trying as hard as it can to correct the imbalance, even though it's making a mess while it's doing it. Just my thoughts on the matter. Anywho, I do have one question. Okay, Savage has a bounty. Why? I mean, Savage has a bounty that's huge, too. It's 1 million credits. That's a large chunk of change for an individual bounty. Why? And furthermore, as an addendum to that, like, I mean, did he piss someone off that much? Or is this just like, it's been growing over him? Like, has he spent the last year just pissing off everybody with money, so now they're willing to pay this much to get him? I don't know, it's convenient, but whatever, I'm willing to let it go. So Obi-Wan tests Maul, which is smart and makes sense. And then they fight, and Obi-Wan gets crushed in what is frankly a completely pathetic display. That being said, it's worth noting that anytime Savage fights anyone, he usually crushes them in a fight. It's something that really irritates me about his character. We'll talk more about that in the future, don't worry. So they utterly, effortlessly crush Obi-Wan. And I do have to admit, I like the theory, even though they don't actually showcase this at all. Maul has always been the assassin. He has been very precise, very agile, very dexterous. And Savage is a brute. He's big and he's strong, and that's about all he's got going for him. Theoretically, the two would make a good combo. Ironically, Ventress and Obi-Wan end up making a better combo later on. And the two have some surprisingly good chemistry together, which I wish they'd covered more, but, you know, whatever. I do have a quick question. Why does Obi-Wan keep taunting Maul? Like, you have no backup plan, Obi-Wan. Why are you trying to piss him off? Anyways, the fight was cool. Woo, and they fight, and they fight, and they fight, and they fight. End season! And now we know the general arc of the next season. It's going to be all about Maul. So I'll see you guys for next season.